those silk shiny stockings that I wear when I'm with you. I wear 'cause you told me that you dig that crazy hue. When we go to a dance, do you think of romance? Oh no, you take a glance at those shiny stockings, then comes some chick along with great big stockings too. Then you changed your mind about me, why I never knew. I guess I'll have to find a new kind, a new guy who digs my shiny stockings too. Ah, Count Basie, roo-doo, ooh-doo, ba-doo-oh, ba-doo-doo, ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-ow. Ba-doo-ba-doo-lay-ow. Ba-doo-ba-doo-lay-ow. Ba-doo-ba-doo-lay-ba-doo-bat, ba-doo-ay. Oh, ay, oh, ja-boy, ooh, oh, oh. Ja-boy, ooh, oh, oh. Ja-ba-ba-doo-yo-ba-ba-doo, sha-ba-doo-lay-ba-doo, mo-ba-ba-ba-doo, oh, ba-doo-ba-doo-lay-ow. Ba-doo-ba-doo-lay-ow. Ba-rip-chop-ba-doo-ay-oh-ba-doo-ay. Ah-ha! Shiny stockings, shiny stockings, ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-doo-ay, ah-rip-chop-bo-doo-ay, ba-doo-ba-da-do-da-bo-bay, ba-doo-da-da-da-doo-ay, oh-ba-doo-ay. One more one. Then comes some chick along with great big stockings too. Then you changed your mind about me, why I never knew. I guess I'll have to find a new kind, a new guy who digs my shiny stockings too. Yes, 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 a new guy who digs my shiny stockings too. Bow, 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 ba-doo-wee, shiny stockings.
Welcome to Meet the Biz. This man is a walking encyclopedia of show business history. And what a voice. You heard him before, and you're going to hear more of that voice because whenever I see him at an event, he's always out there. He has his own style with being an author, a writer, a producer, a singer, an actor, a stand-up. Geoffrey Mark.
Good afternoon or evening or whatever time it is when you're watching this.
Yes. Howdy, folks. I love it. Thank you for the visit.
For you, anything.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I see you in events and you always have this sparkle. You're sparkling all the time. You're not just what you wear, but your what is it? Your energy. It's sparkle. And what was the spark that made you go into show business?
Oh, good heavens. Well, it's hard to trace that back because I think I knew from about the time I was 2 years old, that's where I was headed. I think you've heard me tell this story before. Dysfunctional families also seem to produce a lot of people in show business. And we used to, as a family, when I say a family, I'm talking old fashioned, old school Jewish immigrant family in Brooklyn, New York. Great grandmother, grandparents, parents, me. So 4 generations of us in a house. And on Monday nights on CBS, there used to be, To Tell the Truth, I've Got a Secret, and Lucy. And as a family, we'd watch those things. My mother claims that I learned to talk by watching I Love Lucy, and I thought that she was talking to me, so I talked back to her. Has that worked out very well for me? Very well. Thank you, Ms. Ball, on so many levels. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we watched To Tell the Truth. There was a woman who some of you may be too young to remember, named Kitty Carlisle, who was a singer and an actress and a panelist. My grandmother felt she was the height of what a wonderful, classy lady should be. And she would use Miss Carlisle. I stumbled there because I called her Mrs. Hart. Miss Carlisle to show me how to have good manners. And my mother and my grandmother would sometimes bump heads, as mothers and daughters do. And she'd say, Mommy, what does he need with Kitty Carlisle? He's 2.5 years old. And my grandmother said, you don't even know what's in your own son. These are the people he's going to deal with when he grows up. He better learn how to. Someday he's going to be in Kitty Carlisle's living room telling her about this conversation and laughing at you. And 40-something years later, I was in Kitty Carlisle's living room telling her this story. My grandmother had passed, Mrs. Hart, I never called her anything but, was in her 90s. But she let me watch her take a voice lesson and tell her this story. And it's nice when the universe allows these things to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting when you grow up and you see somebody on TV that you love, that has inspired you in one way or the other, and then you finally meet them. And it's really wonderful when they're sweethearts. They're amazing and wonderful.
On that same panel, by the way, was Tom Poston. And Tom and I became friends many years later as part of Yarmy's Army, which is a group of stand-up comedians, comedy directors, comedy writers,
right,
of whom I was very proud to be one. I digress a little bit here. My first Yarmy's Army meeting, for you guys to understand when I say I was proud to be a member, I'm going to, in my mind, go around the table for you and tell you who was there. Jonathan Winters, Harvey Korman, Peter Marshall, Ron Carey, Louis Nye, Pat Harrington Jr., Don Knotts, Howie Morris. That's what's coming to mind off the top of my head. There were plenty more.
This was a panel that you were with?
This was a dinner. There was a comedian named Dick Yarmy.
Yeah.
Who was Don Adams' brother. Yarmy was their real last name. And unfortunately, Dick got sick with cancer. And these men would go once a week and take him out to lunch. Yeah. He lasted about a year longer than the doctors thought. And he always said, it's these lunches that keep me going. When he died, and Chuck McCann was there. When he died, Howard Storm, the director, Chuck McCann, and a few others said, let's keep this going. So Yarmy's Army, named for him, and of course, Don Adams was part of the group too. We performed, and the money we earned went to help actors and singers who had had careers, but as they'd gotten older, for whatever reasons, had fallen on hard times financially.
Yeah.
And privately helped people whose names you'd recognize who needed the help. I was very, very, very lucky and fortunate to be a part of that, gosh, if you include right now, for about 22 years.
Wow. This is wonderful. And they have these lunches, they have these get-together.
It's a dinner. It's a once-a-month dinner. Unfortunately, a lot of the people I'm talking about, Shelley Berman, have gone.
Yeah.
Tom Poston was part of that. When he was married to Suzanne Plachette, Suzanne could come because she had a mouth like a sailor. It was a boys only club, but Suzanne could sling it with the best of them. And the other woman that was allowed whenever she wanted to was my friend Phyllis Diller, who also knew how to use vocabulary very well.
God, you knew them all. I mean, you knew them all. You know them all. It sure seemed like it.
Well, I call myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Because, and I've seen this in action, so it's not just me. People in show business who honestly have talent. I'm not talking about the flashes in the pan or the ones with six-pack abs or large breasts who make careers but don't have the talent to back it up. People who really have worked hard and have it. When they see somebody else with talent, and when they see somebody else with talent who has that same burning ambition, see, that's the real important part. Not the six-pack abs or being blessed in any part of your body, but the burning ambition part. They go out of their way to help you. And along the way, I'll name drop a few. I did a program a few days ago, you said you saw, and we got knocked because I was name dropping somebody. Said, well, too bad. This is my work. This is my life. If you don't like the name dropping, watching the program, because we're going to be name dropping today. Lucille Ball. Steve Allen was a huge mentor for me. Milton Berle was a huge mentor for me.
Well, I'm going to stop for a second, and then I want you to continue. But if you have connected with these people in your life, if you have worked with them in one way or another, why would it be name dropping? It's part of your history.
It is a part of my history the same way having a fling with Freddie Mercury is a part of my history. The same way how I met the love of my life is my history. It's all part of me, different parts of me at different ages. I think people who mind that kind of thing are jealous. There's somebody, a very nice man who makes a whole lot more money than I do in show business, who you think you're getting famous by standing next to famous people. I said, well, no, I'm standing next to famous people because I have a career. Which is still continuing, which is why I'm on with you today. At the moment, by the way, you are a good luck charm for me because today, two book offers. Today.
Two book offers?
Two book offers. So David, you are my lucky charm.
Can we maybe get a...
Well, one I've been talking about for quite a while, actually. Just I didn't have the contract. Yeah. About 22 years ago, I wrote a book called The Lucy Book, which was not a biography of Miss Ball. I had felt that the biographies written about her were inaccurate, looking for dirt, and missed the point. I don't think any of us really cared all that much about Miss Ball's personal life. It isn't that interesting. I'm not putting her down. I'm just saying we remember her because of the work. Well, no one had written about the work. I mean, really in-depth written about it. So the Lucy Book, with a foreword by Steve Allen and a back cover blurb by Milton Berle and a foreword by Lucy Arnaz and Desi Jr. and approved by the families, was from early live television till after she died, every time Lucille Ball was on television. Who was there, what was going on, what's the backstage story, and interviews with all the people who were working with her.
I mean, the names you've been saying are legends. And of course, Lucille Ball, I mean, she's one of the top 10 that I could think of in the history of television and the entertainment industry.
Well, she was an inspiration to me because of that work ethic thing I'm talking about. Yes, she was beautiful. In fact, Steve Allen said to me, he met her in the 40s when she was on radio and he was on radio on CBS in Los Angeles. And he said, not only was she like one of the most beautiful women of the moment, he said, I think she was one of the most beautiful women in history, which is a big thing for someone like Steve Allen to say because he met everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'd be talking about her today except for her talent and the hard work it took for somebody who never finished high school, who got a lot of rejection talk, who had an illness in her very young life that kept her out of the public eye for about 18 months, that she overcame, and yet was burning with ambition and took every opportunity that came her way to better herself. That's how she inspires me to do the very same kinds of things. I turn almost nothing down. One of the things I turn down are when amateurs want me to give of my talent for free to build them up. But they want me to do all the heavy lifting. It's like, no, I'll help you get where you want to go, but don't ask me to work for free. That's not fair to me.
So now, in the scheme of things, the Lucy book.
Yes.
Now, how many books have you written altogether?
Well, there's 5 with my name on it, and another 3 or 4 that I ghost wrote for other people.
Okay.
So we can't discuss those.
Right.
But today, I can happily announce that the new Lucy book is what we're going to call it.
Yeah.
We are adding in all of her radio shows to show you how the comedy developed before I Love Lucy, and her films, and her Broadway musical Wildcat. So it will be her entire career between 2 covers. Again, not going into her personal life, except where it affects a performance.
Got it. No, so it's going to be a totally separate book, or are you going to make the other book larger?
The answer is yes to both. There's probably, I would say, close to half of the content will be new.
Yeah.
Which, if we're talking like by copyrights and things, makes it a whole new book. But the information that was in the old book will be in the new book. And by the way, about her television work, we have brand new interviews. This has been done since COVID with Carol Burnett and Anne Margaret and Rich Biddle and Jackie Joseph. Yeah, I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the planet. We'll get back to what we're talking about, but I think this is important for anyone to hear. Yeah. You know the other reason why I've been able to do all these things?
Why?
I'm not afraid to reach out to people. I don't say they're too big a star for me to ask something. No, all they can do is say no.
Right.
If I don't ask, you don't ask, you don't get. There's nothing wrong with being told no. There's nothing wrong with people saying, I don't want to be involved in that. You say, I'm sorry for bothering you, and you move on.
Right.
Like John Davidson doesn't want to be interviewed for the Lucy book. He did an episode of Here's Lucy, doesn't want to, and interviewed her on his own talk show. Doesn't want to talk about her. All right. Thank you, John, and I move on.
Right.
And the other thing is, I've never been afraid to ask for help. When something has gone awry, or I need a favor, or I need $1, or a ride somewhere, or someone to make a phone call on my behalf, I'm not afraid to say, hey, I need some help here. See, I don't stand on pride.
Right.
I stand on hard work. And whatever has to happen for me to move forward, I mean, I'm a very ethical, nice guy. I don't step on people, but whatever I have to do to move forward, I move forward.
Well, you know what? I mean, what another book that you wrote, which is right behind you there, I can see, is Ethel Merman, the Biggest Star on Broadway.
Absolutely.
Now, where did that come in the scheme of things?
It goes back to my grandmother. My grandmother knew where I was headed. Right. She was the only one in my immediate family who had a real education. She'd been to college. She'd been a flapper in the 20s. I have one of her flapper dresses hanging in my closet.
Oh, wow.
It used to cost hundreds of dollars back then. She'd been to the opera. She'd been to Broadway. She'd been to vaudeville. She'd been to ballets and symphony orchestras. She had this in her background. And she saw all of this in me and wanted to teach me. So when people like, if an Al Jolson film was playing on television, or Eddie Cantor or Fanny Brice, she'd sit with me to watch it. If Judy Garland or Ethel Merman or Ray Bolger were on television, she'd say, watch what this person's doing. They really, I mean, they're awfully good. You can learn from them. You should know about them. So she introduced me to Merman. Then Merman did the Lucy show, which was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
There's a whole story about just that appearance that could take up a whole hour. The interconnected lives of all the people who are on that show. And I realized that Miss Merman, like Miss Ball, was the very best at what she did. And the title of the book comes from that Lucy Show episode. Lucy Carmichael, the character Miss Ball played on the Lucy Show. For very convoluted reasons, Ethel Merman was staying in her house and upsetting and upstaging Mrs. Carmichael.
Yeah.
And she was complaining to Vivian Vance, Merman, 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 Merman. That's all I hear is Merman. You'd think she's the biggest star on Broadway. And that got a laugh.
Yeah.
And then Vivian waits, because Vivian's timing was perfect. She goes, she is.
Yeah.
That's where the title of the book came from.
Oh, I love that. And now, when you wrote did you meet Ethel? Did you work with you? So you knew
I didn't work with Miss Merman, but I had the opportunity to meet her several times. Interview would be a bad choice of words. I got to ask her some questions. I got to be there with her on some occasions. We were not friends. Like Mary Martin and I were friends. We talked. We spent time together.
Yeah.
Ethel and I were not friends, but there I was a few times.
Yeah.
And a lot of her friends ended up being my friends. So the research was a joy.
Yeah.
And I got slammed because I wrote about her marriage to Ernest Borgnine. And what did happen, that if you don't know this or not, Miss Merman and Mr. Borgnine, although they were legally married for 28 days, actually cohabitated for 48 hours. And the story of what happened is in the book. And a lot of the Merman fans and the Borgnine fans were a little indignant that I wrote about it. But again, it's a part of her life.
Right.
In her book, it was hysterical. Her own autobiography, she wrote, Chapter 27, My Marriage to Ernest Borgnine. You turn the page, Chapter 28.
Ah, really?
Yes.
Did she say marriage to Ernest Borgnine?
Yes.
And so it had one sentence on there. That's sort of like Jerry Jules.
Yes.
Did you see that where she said, I forgot the name of the chapter, but it was the name of the chapter, and I think it was her ex-husband, and then she had 3 blank pages. And then it went to the next chapter. It was funny. So that's interesting that Ethel, before we get off of Ethel, I have to say, I always say, she's my cousin. But
I don't think so.
What was her real last name?
It was Zimmerman with 2 N's. But she
what? Oh, it was 2 N's. So I guess she's not my cousin.
Well, and her father was German and her mother was Scottish, and they were Christian, not Jewish. So I don't think she was your anything, except I'm sure had she known you, she would have adored you.
Ah, thank you. That's very fun. So, sometimes people say, I'm a writer, I'm an author. What is the difference between a writer and an author?
An author writes books or scripts. A writer can write comedy sketches. A writer can write comedy material for another comedian. A writer can write concepts. A writer can write lyrics. Oh, you want to have your heart broken? I was interviewing Steve Allen on camera.
Yeah.
I co-produced and co-wrote a documentary called Inside Television's Greatest, I Love Lucy, for TLC.
Yeah.
And I did what I had to do with him. We'd known each other for years.
Yeah.
And he said, how about doing the next one on me? I'll open up my whole library to you. I said, done.
Yeah.
And then he said, Jeff, you've written lyrics, haven't you? I said, yeah, not extensively, but I'm a member of ASCAP. I've got lyrics in there. He said, I've got about 100 tunes I've written that never got lyrics written for them. If I send them to you, him playing the piano, could you pick out 10 and put some lyrics to them and see if we can put an album together? I said, how much do I have to pay you to do that?
Oh, wow.
And he died 5 days later. And I
no.
called Jane, his wife, Jane Meadows, to send my sympathy and also say to her, by the way, this is what Steve wanted. She said, Jeff, I don't know which 100 he meant, and I can't approve your lyrics for him. Unfortunately, this is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's interesting how, I mean, interesting is not the right term. I mean, it's an emotional term that I can't even find the word for, but that we go through these things where, you know, you're given like a little taste of it and then it moves on. But that being said, and usually I don't say but, I say and, you have that moment. You have that moment and that memory with him.
Look, all of us in show business are approached to do things at whatever level we are in the business.
Yeah.
There are meetings and meetings and meetings, and the projects never happen.
Mm,
Heck, all the way back around 1980,
yeah.
I was asked to co-write the libretto for a musical version of I Love Lucy. And we must have had 10 meetings about it. It never happened. It was going to star Gilda Radner as Lucy
Oh,
Ricardo. Never happened.
yeah.
I've spent sometimes months on documentaries and films that, for whatever reasons, financing or there's creative discord, don't happen.
Yeah.
It's why, I make fun of my hats sometimes, but it's why you have to wear different hats in show business. Why am I a hyphenate? Actor, writer, singer, comedian, historian? Because you never know what's going to sell. You never know how to keep it going in show business.
Yeah.
I've been in professional, getting paid for what I do since 1974. To
Yeah.
stay in the business that long, you have to keep finding new things to do. The best advice I ever got was from somebody who couldn't stand me.
Yeah.
And I don't mean any disrespect to her. She doesn't like me, and I accept that. Bob Schiller was one of the original writers of I Love Lucy, and we were very, very close friends.
Mm.
And he and his wife took me to a Democratic Party dinner for the head of the California Democratic Party. Republicans, that's the end of the political spiel, just how it was. So please don't think this is a political message here. And she took me for a walk. It was a picnic outdoors, and said, Jeff, you've got to learn how to reinvent yourself. If you want to stay in show business all your life, you've got to wear different hats, pointing to my sparkly hat.
Mm.
And that's what I've done.
You have.
Sometimes I'm a cruise ship entertainer. Sometimes I'm doing summer stock. Sometimes I'm doing theater in New York. Sometimes I'm singing in a nightclub. Sometimes I'm doing stand-up. Or I'm writing a book. Or I'm on here with you. Or I'm going to an Emmy Award show. I try to keep it fresh.
Well, it's interesting because I have to say, you are, once in a while I put out, what would you like to ask Geoffrey Marks or Julie Newmar? In fact, you and Julie were the most questions that I've gotten on Facebook. And one of them, connected to what we're talking about, is from, this is what his name is online, Stanley Director.
That's his real name.
Stanley Director. Which hat do you like among your talents? So connected to hats. Thank you, Stanley, by the way.
Stanley was also a member of the Army's Army. Stanley's been an actor for a very long time and a good man. I think the one that I've had to work the hardest at is singing. I was naturally funny. I had good teachers in school teach me how to write well. But I think the one where I hear the applause and feel it the most is when I'm doing a concert or a nightclub gig and I hear the audience liking my singing. That is the one that probably brings me the most pleasure. And then making people laugh. If I can make anybody laugh for any reason, my day has already been made. I've been a blessing to somebody. So in general, to answer Stanley's question, it's live performances. I love doing plays. I love doing musicals. I have COPD, so like my starring in a musical now probably isn't going to happen anymore. And of course, the theaters are closed anyway. But anytime I can be in front of an audience and perform and have them like it, it's a much different thing than writing a script or producing a show or directing a show or writing, that's very solitary and it takes months and years. The Lucy book is the result of over 30 years of research. The Merman book took 4 years to write. So you don't get any kind of approval, even when the book is published. It isn't like I go to people's houses and hear them applauding while they're reading my book. Uh, I love performing in front of a live audience. I really do. It just satisfies my soul.
I love that. I love that. So you won an Emmy?
I got an Emmy. It's a difference. It was not a competitive award.
Right.
When 9/11 happened, I was working on the I Love Lucy 50th anniversary special.
Right.
From home, because sometimes there's discord in a group of people working on something.
Mm-hmm.
And Desi Arnaz Jr. said, I want you on this, but there's somebody here who doesn't want you around. Could you please work on it from home? I said, yeah, happy to. And the man who was producing that was producing the Emmy Awards that year. At the same moment, I was working on a TV movie that never happened with the president of the Television Academy. And it was his first year as president. 9/11 happened, they canceled the Emmy Awards. And the man who was the head of the Academy and the man who was producing the awards had never met, and they didn't know what to do. And since I knew them both, I got involved, and for my involvement, I was given an Emmy Award. The Grammy is competitive.
The Grammy is?
Competitive.
Yes.
That was for competition for my work.
And that you were nominated for?
Yes.
Yes. I love that. I love this. We have a question from one of our students, Ranjani Reyes. She said, who inspired you to be a writer?
I'd have to give a few names, and thank you for asking. One is Arthur Marx, Groucho's son. I really loved the books he wrote about famous people.
Yeah.
And I liked his style. I am closer to Harpo's son than I am Billy, than I am to Arthur, let he rest in peace.
Yeah.
But as a student of writing, I liked his work.
Mm-hmm.
And other than teachers who recognized that I had a gift for writing, the other person who inspired me was my soulmate, who was a wonderful, gifted writer who wrote not only comedy material, but he wrote plays and films, and he was wonderful at what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And being with him inspired me to do the best I could. I
love this. I love this. Again, there's so many good. Oh, this is a question. Who is your favorite? Mark Kirby asked, who's your favorite male actor and why? And I'm going to ask, who is your favorite female actor and why? Thank you for the question, Mark. Spencer Tracy. Spencer.
Spencer Tracy owns the talent of film acting. Watch any of his films, and it took him a while. He wasn't born ready for this. Watch his films made after World War II, from that point forward. The man could just, I'm going to lean in a little bit, the man could just stand there and think. And you knew what he was thinking. He was able to portray thought through body language, facial movement, he was able to control the pupils of his eyes, I think. I've never seen anybody be able to do it so well. And I especially love the films he made with Stanley Kramer. He's one of my favorite directors.
Oh.
And his daughter, Kat, and his wife are friends of mine.
Yeah.
I just don't think there was anybody better of his generation. Probably my favorite actor closer to my own age is probably Tom Hanks. And I don't know that I have a favorite of the new people. Paul Rudd, maybe.
Yeah.
I think Paul is able to portray a warmth on screen that is missing from a lot of young performers. There's an instant likability about him that makes me believe what he's doing. which is the whole point of acting, is to get the audience to believe that what you're doing is actually happening.
Yeah.
So those are the three I'd probably pick off the top of my head. A female actor of all time, Bette Davis.
Ah,
For the same reasons.
yeah.
She was able to portray so much emotion without chewing the scenery. She was an incredible, great actor. Lucille Ball is an incredible, great actor. People think, and I've heard people talk about Lucille Ball this way, what a wonderful, she's a clown. I respectfully disagree. She is an actor who can act like a clown. See,
Mm.
Red Skelton is a clown, not necessarily a great actor.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis, not necessarily a great actor, a clown. Lucille Ball embodied what the scripts were. Anyone who knew her personally, she was not anything like the Lucy character privately. And if you watch her dramatic films, she's wonderful because she believes what she's doing. She suspends disbelief, which is why I Love Lucy works so well. And I'll just use one episode as an example. Remember the episode where Lucy and Ethel bake this gigantic bread?
Yes.
Comes out of the oven?
Yeah.
Watch the episode sometimes. The bread that comes out of the oven is 3 times longer than the oven is thick.
Yes.
Nobody questioned it. Why? Because Lucille Ball, the actor, made Lucy Ricardo believe this is happening, so much so that we at home could suspend our disbelief.
Right.
That is what acting is. So I'd say Bette Davis and Lucille Ball, female.
Yeah.
Of a more recent, Meryl Streep probably.
Yeah.
She can do almost everything, and for the same reasons.
You know, I'm hearing these names, these different names that you've said about favorite actors, favorite actresses. If you had another book, which you do have other books to write, what out of the people that you mentioned, if you could choose one, who would you want to write about?
Well, it wouldn't be any of the names I mentioned. All these people have had wonderful books written about them already, or they've written their own books. We don't need another book about Bette Davis or Spencer Tracy. It's been done. The person I'd love to write about, and really can't because of finances, is Dinah Shore.
Oh.
Dinah Shore, both as a vocalist and as a television performer, is very important to show business history. Yet, because she didn't make very many films, and the TV shows she did are very rarely repeated, people under the age of 50 or 40 have no idea who she is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sell her name to a publisher. There wouldn't be enough people out there. But I think her struggles, Dinah had polio and survived it. Dinah was a Jewish woman in the Deep South. Dinah had a lot of things she had to overcome. Yeah. And not only did she overcome them, but she became this gigantic, in her day, superstar, certainly on television.
Yeah.
And I think her story should inspire people.
Yeah.
That one's personal circumstances don't have to stand in the way of success, as mine didn't. And you may ask me anything about my personal life you want. You already know some of it. But, I once had somebody say to me, "Good heavens, Jeff, you had a wealthy family and you were given this wonderful education and you didn't have to overcome anything. What chance do I have?" And I answered back, "What makes you think I had a wealthy family or that anyone gave me an education? I paid for it myself, and I was in college at 15 and I paid for it myself.
15?
I also paid for my own bar mitzvah. So you shouldn't assume that anyone comes from a principality of a childhood. Mine certainly wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Dinah's story should be told someday.
God, it sounds amazing. It makes me want, because I loved watching her work, and to hear some of those things which I didn't know oh, it's like, wow, you keep on finding more and more stuff. And it is interesting this day and age, unlike when I was growing up, we would love to hear about the people that were before, like Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, she was still around when I was around, but still my dad's and mom's, the people that they grew up with, I would still be fascinated by all this. Maybe because I was in the arts. But I just feel like it's different this day and age. People don't have that, that it's like, who's, this person you would think everybody would know about, they don't know.
I'm a teeny bit older than you. Yeah, teeny bit. I'm older than you are. Yeah. And again, lucky guy. I was a baby boomer living in New York City at a time when there were CBS, NBC, and ABC on television, and then local channels.
Yeah.
There was no cable. That's all there was. So they had to fill their time with very, very old movies because the movie studios didn't allow anything over past 1948 to get on television. So we were watching silent films and early talking films. And we were watching in the late 50s and 60s shows that had been done in the early 50s being rerun over and over and over again. And we got to see whoever was current was coming. So if you pick a year, 1964, I could have.
Good year!
I can't imagine why. But I could have seen the Beatles perform.
Yeah.
I could have seen an early Tom Jones perform. I could have seen Charlie Chaplin perform. I could have seen Fanny Brice perform. I could have seen Lucille Ball perform. I could have seen Bob Hope perform. I knew, not because I studied it, but because it was available to all of us.
Right.
Who my grandparents' people were, who my parents' people were, and then who was current. Baby boomers were exposed to all of 20th century show business.
Rafael Antonio Campos had two great questions. What are your top three favorite moments in life, or in your life's journey so far, and your most memorable?
Oh gosh. Certainly being at the Grammy Awards and hearing my name as a contender.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, I didn't win. Having the man who did win come from the stage and walk over to me and said, I almost didn't come. What you wrote was better. This is a rock and roll year. Everybody who's getting the awards is in rock and roll music. He said, you deserved this, not me. I wanted you to know that.
Wow.
That's a big moment in my life. I think a couple of years ago, I was doing a singing tour, and I went back, again, my personal life. I was born and raised half in Brooklyn, New York. The other half is in a little town outside of Baltimore called Randallstown. And I went to Baltimore and did a nightclub act. And downtown in Baltimore, a lovely, lovely place. And about a dozen of my high school friends that I hadn't seen in 45 years showed up. And to be introduced and come out, and the place was jammed. We had standing room there, which is a huge compliment to me.
Right.
Anytime you fill a room up like that, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
But to stop, I got so choked up at seeing these faces. It's like, wow, we made it. We're still alive, and here we are, and you're here to see me. And I couldn't go on. I had to stop and acknowledge what was happening.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always honest with my audiences. I couldn't ignore the swell of emotion I had and not share it with the audience. And I think they had a better time because of it.
One last question.
Oh, not done already.
Oh my God. We could talk for hours. You have so much. Again, you're the encyclopedia man. And some people would say, what's an encyclopedia?
Yeah, how about that?
Oh my God, that scares me. What's your biggest joy?
Personally, my biggest, well, I don't think I could pick one.
Okay.
Being a blessing to other people satisfies my soul. Spending time with my kids and grandkids satisfies my soul. Loving. When I have a person in my life, I don't necessarily mean sexually or romantically, although I'm not including that. Loving people brings me joy. My audiences bring me joy. Performing brings me joy. Cooking a good meal for people, it brings me joy. These days, porn brings me joy. I had to learn self-care. I didn't understand that when I was a young man. We haven't talked yet, but I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. Now, I'm 31 and a half years clean and sober. Before that, I didn't take very good care of myself. I smoked cigarettes, I did all kinds of drugs, and I drank myself into a stupor. And I lost a good 7 or 8 years out of my career because of it. You know, you don't show up for nightclub gigs, they don't tend to hire you again. A recording company gives you free time to come in and sing with a jazz trio, and you don't show up. They don't talk to you. I know. How stupid was I? That when I got sober, show business took me back. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And that's why I really went into writing. I was afraid. I was afraid that early in my sobriety, I could not handle rejections. When you're an actor or a singer or a comedian, you're told no 10 times more than you're told yes, maybe 20 times more. I thought, well, what can I do that won't bring rejection every single day so I'm not crushed by it?
Yeah.
So, well, if I write a book, they won't turn me down till the book is finished. And I went out and bought my first computer, DOS, no Windows, an Amber monitor. And by cracky, I sat down and spent a year or two writing the first draft of my first book. And glory be, it sold. And I've been writing ever since. And then I got the confidence to go back and perform again. First by doing charity work and then getting paid for it. Does that answer your question, sir?
It does, sir.